The following is a conversation with John Faig, a top voice in educational technology, a startup mentor, and an AI enthusiast, who also serves as a RevOps consultant. With his unique blend of business, technical, and educational expertise, John shares invaluable insights on becoming a data-driven company and the crucial role of relentless experimentation in the thriving world of EdTech. In the first episode, we explore the common challenges faced by EdTech startups. John talks about the importance of understanding the emotional aspects of sales and the need to create a product that serves both teachers, the users, and principals or superintendents, the buyers. We also discuss the dangers of focusing too much on product features rather than the overall value it provides. Plus, John highlights the critical role of clear messaging and strong brand awareness in the success of EdTech ventures. So, if you're ready to turn your EdTech struggles into success stories, you definitely want to stick around for this one. I would love to ask you, what common challenges do you see EdTech startups are facing, and how do you typically advise them to overcome those challenges?
EdTech companies, startups in particular, have several challenges. I would say the first one is that their users are not the buyers. And so you can get product level information and help solve problems in the classroom. Those are your users, the teachers. The buyers are principals and superintendents. And so the key is to actually craft a product that provides value to both the buyer and the user, the teacher. A lot of companies focus too heavily on just the teacher, and then they're left with a quandary, which is, why as a buyer should I buy that product for my teachers when I don't know anything about it and it doesn't help me solve my problems?
And according to your blog posts, the biggest EdTech business mistakes, I got the notion that the single most common startup mistake is to rely too much on the features, on their specific feature set. So how this can be avoided?
So selling is an emotional process, and it requires behavioral change. You're asking somebody to do something differently than they currently do. It could be better than they do now. It could be automation on top of a manual process, or it could be something else. It could be a re-engineering of what they do to be more efficient. But at the end of the day, there needs to be a behavioral change. I'm going to do something different tomorrow than I did today. And it involves a product to help me solve my problems. That's part of it. The other part is there's an emotional component. Sales is always emotional. You're not selling features and functions necessarily. Those don't emote well with people. Those don't demonstrate your value at a significant level. Those are the whats. Sales is about the whys. Why do I want your product before you even tell me what it does? So in many cases, I've encouraged companies to have a 3-word slogan so that people can be either positively or negatively predisposed to what you have. That's significant too, because if you have to, in the sales process, convince people that they need your product, that's too much push and not enough pull. So the key is to provide a messaging, slogan, framework, and related collateral so that people can understand what you do before you go on a sales call with them or before you even talk to them. In other words, you're trying to automate and plant seeds in advance of your marketing and salespeople calling on customers. The problem is that many EdTech companies don't build up brand awareness. And so people have no idea what they do, or if it's a well-established product category, they are unsure of your competitive differentiation, why your product adds more value than the other product. So what should happen in a perfect world is, even ahead of your MVP, 6 to 12 months ahead of time, you need to be out there brand building and creating thought leadership. So when people think company X, oh, they do that, I'm going to give them a call, right? So right now, a lot of ed tech companies don't have crisp messaging. And so instead of several product categories, which is typical of other sectors of technology, you have a bunch of companies and customers, both users and buyers, don't have a clear understanding of how the products can be used, what they do, significant overlap between products, and that just makes things more messy. And so at the end of the day, without crisp messaging, you have noisy marketplace, right? You have products that are, mentioned in the same category, but they don't actually compete. They don't do the same thing. And again, once you're at the feature level, you're at the what level. Everybody comes with the what level initially. You watch any of the demos that people have on their website, or they do in a sales situation, and they go right to the features. As I said, that's wrong for two reasons. The first is, I've said, you want to establish the why. You want to establish the high ground, the emotional reason why somebody wants to engage with your product. The features can only interfere with your value because the interface may not be what they like, the onboarding's too hard, or it's too expensive. So once you move from the why down to reality, to the ground, you're actually adding friction to what the customer thinks is the value of your product. So to lead with that means you're leading with the friction instead of the promise. Secondarily, and this is a killer, ed tech companies don't always invest in RevOps, right? So that's customer success, that's onboarding, that's user behavior, that's customer service, that's community building, right? So they don't have the products to capture user behavior. So they don't even know what features drive the value in their product. And I can guarantee you, if a product has 100 features, it's probably 4 that customers really love. The problem is, without that user behavior, without the mix panel or Pendo product anchored with your product, you don't know which 4 out of the 100. So your product development is random. It's not investing behind the features that drive the most value for your customers. It's investing across the board in hopes that you're adding features. I've seen a lot of companies add features, and in many cases, that just creates more training and onboarding problems. So the best thing you can do if you're an ed tech company is find out what subset of features really drive the value in your product and put everything else on hold. Hide them in the interface, sunset them, take them out of the product and reintroduce them later, right? You're assuming that people have an infinite amount of bandwidth to play with your product, right? In reality, adoption is somewhat staged. It's stepwise. It's, I'm going to use this product for this reason. Oh, it's got some other features. I'm going to explore them. Oh, it's got some more features. So many companies have made the mistake of adding features, assuming that despite the fact that they don't have branding and market awareness, that more features will eventually convince users and buyers to buy the product. That never works. And without users and customers having at least a basic understanding of what you're selling, just makes a more complicated product. It's more development, it's more bug fixes, it's more customer support. I mean, it's really counterintuitive to what they should be doing.
Yeah, but that's, from the founder's perspective, I guess it's like you're always trying to fix the education as a whole. And do you have the same idea, like speaking to founders that you've been speaking to?
I actually say that they're not being audacious enough. What's happened in EdTech, and we have 36 products spread across our school, and they're not used by all teachers. They find a product market fit with a small subset of our teachers, either a subject level or a grade level. So many products don't have broad product market fit. They have product market fit with a subset, a specific persona within a school. And so what I would say to next generation EdTech companies is solve bigger problems. They've gone into the classroom, interviewed teachers, and said, "Oh, you need a way to provide feedback. You need cloud-based documents. You need an infinite whiteboard. You need an exit ticket, entry ticket. You need a way to survey kids. You need a way to do this, that." So they've gone in and looked at the existing processes in a classroom and digitized them one by one. I think most people can agree that education needs to be re-engineered. And so the classroom experience, the workflow on the teacher and the experience on the students needs to be changed dramatically. And so these products should be helping solve it, but they're not helping solve it. I could get rid of any of our 36 tools and teachers would be inconvenienced. They would have to find something else to do, maybe an open source product, or maybe one of the other tools that we're not getting rid of. But the fact that they can give up those products pretty easily, the sum total of those products is a fair amount of money. And it's interesting that they wouldn't care at all. Also, the other problem I see is limited scope, is what I just mentioned. Also, usability, right? So EdTech products are hyper-focused on the teacher and don't include the students. Students are never included in the user research. And as a result, students are unlikely to use any EdTech product if there's not an assignment that requires it. So the fact that the utility is strictly associated with the school, to me, is a limiting factor, because learning is generic. Learning does happen in schools. It happens at home and homework. It happens on passion projects. It happens on things in summer camp and after school. Learning is somewhat universal. And I think EdTech companies have too narrowly focused on one particular learning mode. To me, a successful EdTech product would be kids using it all the time. Hey, my teacher gave me an assignment. I have to do it. Do, tap, tap, tap. Oh, I have some free time tonight. I'm going to use that product to do something else.
So it has to be that engaging, so students will want to learn even outside the school.
Well, I think in general, I'm talking about universal usability. So EdTech products often fall out of favor because they're purchased, and if they're not in everyday use or every several days per week, then they have one foot out the door already. And the worst situation would be a teacher who is shown a product or given a product, and they associate it with a particular unit, right? So if a school year is 8 months long and they have one unit that uses it, that means 7 of the 8 months they're not using it. That's a very tough situation also, because it means I doubt the company focused on that particular product market fit of like one particular unit. And so that's a messaging problem or an education problem in onboarding, because it says that the teacher doesn't see value in using this product across all the units. They only see value in using it in a specific unit.
Your experience here is invaluable. That's the word I will say.
Well, I've had multiple hats, right? So I was a classroom teacher. I was a technology coordinator who assists teachers in implementing technologies, and now I'm an administrator and I buy products. So I've seen it all. And so I am both a user and a buyer.
And for example, how often do you resign from products? Because I often hear like, I am responsible for buying products, but do you often have to sign off? Like you don't use them, like you use them for 1 semester or 1 year and then you get rid of them?
I will give it several years. I'm not in a rush to remove products, because the gestation period is 3 to 5 years. Because you'll establish an initial beachhead with a persona, a target group of teachers, and then the company should work to expand that, right? So they should work to expand it to other areas of the school. And really a successful implementation is where at least half the school uses your product. So to me, even though we're a small school, it takes years of teachers talking up a product, helping each other, and co-developing curriculum, because that's also a problem too, right? You get a product, how do I use it with respect to my curriculum? How does it make my curriculum more engaging? Or can I go deeper with this product, right? So the curricular redesign is not trivial for teachers. And so if you can get some early adopters who are willing to do that and have the skills, curricular instructional design is not something every teacher can do well. So what happens is you find teachers that can do that, they'll spread the word, and then you'll have enough of the school using it where you're probably not going to get thrown out.
It takes time.
It takes time, and that is a significant source of revenue for the companies. EdTech companies that are successful have at least a third or more of their sales be reference sales from existing customers.
Mm. I would like to move more to more broad subject and to discuss the differences between US EdTech market and European EdTech market. Are you aware of any key differences between US and Europe in this matter?
Yeah, the differences are, as you would expect, state of the technical infrastructure in the country, availability of devices, and purchasing structure. Who purchases it and how is it purchased? So overseas, it varies by country, as far as I can tell. In the U.S., you have independent schools, you have public schools, and the public schools are location-based. They're run by town education boards or district education boards. And in California and Texas and New York, there are regional technology agencies that help evaluate and fund technologies. And so you need to be on the approved list in those areas if you're even going to talk to people, right? So the first is there's a bureaucratic process here. I'm sure there is in Europe and other parts of the world where there's an
yes, there is.
So you have to be on the approved list. Like in New York, the BOCES, BOCES, are regional, and they will fund at least partially or mostly the price of a product. So you're not going to go around them and ignore them because they could be a financial aid to you if you're in a single school. Of course, to get on the approved list is a process. It takes, I think, the fastest I've heard was 6 months when one school really wanted the product, and so they really just marshaled resources. But other companies that have done it in a little less direct manner, 6 to 18 months to get on the approved list. If you get on, if they don't think your product has significant differentiation relative to the other products in the portfolio or on the approved list, let's say, then you're not on, and then you have a really uphill battle to sell.
I guess this is a very similar to Europe. Of course, we have a different, maybe a little bit different obstacles, and the process looks different for sure. But it's not easy to get to schools. You often have to fight those administration hurdles. But on the other hand, the problems are similar. So is there some maybe way that you advise to overcome that challenge? For example, to shorten that time to not to wait like 2 years to be accepted and adopted, but those 6 months. Do you have any tricks here?
Yeah. So experimentation. So in the States here, independent schools can buy products all year long generally, whereas public schools have, a July 1 fiscal start. The budget was set the previous October. They might have some money available for new products. They might not. And then it's curious when the buying actually happens. It might be in the summer, might be in the fall, might be in the spring based on what they're doing. So finding the right time that somebody wants to pay for your product is challenging, and it varies by state. It varies by schools, have different priorities. So my strong recommendation is put in a system where you can start to identify the buyer journey. In EdTech, that will be anywhere between 30 and 60 touch points. So, right. So if you can imagine if you were effectively interacting with a suspect or a prospect, you could do that every 2 weeks or so, but you can see that already protracts. And if you do it too frequently, they're just going to stop receiving your information. And so the relationship is going to come to a screeching halt if you overburden them, right? So you can't really accelerate that initially. You can accelerate that once you know the buyer journey. You can look at that and say, okay, people who download the 5-minute video are very likely to buy it, but they only do it until they don't do it until step number 15 or touch point number 15. Okay, then you can look to say, hey, maybe the first 14 touch points were all about brand awareness that we didn't do. So now let's focus on that, and maybe we can shorten the buyer journey. So, it's, get known, get seen, make people know what you do, get in front of them, solve their problem, sell, right? So there's a lot of steps that go into that. So of those 5 steps, I don't see how you can really short circuit them or compress them until you know what they are. Those steps are actually forming what are known as market qualified leads and sales qualified leads. If you had people in those roles in a company, they would be gatekeepers to your funnel. Startups don't have people in those roles; they just have the funnel. Some companies don't even have the funnel, which is a disaster. So how can you manage 30 to 50 touch points that could vary from opportunity to opportunity without a system? It would be madness. So the funnel, even without a salesperson and a marketing person, can still have the effect of gatekeeping, because you'll look at the buyer journey and decide what are the real critical points and who needs to handle them. And can you compress it a little bit, right? Like, when should I call on a person? Like, when are they ready? Or should I wait till they call me? Like, should I be passive, but know that when they called me, and it'll be fewer people than not, but do I use that as a qualification to actually set up a meeting? So there's a lot of things that you really want to hope that is a pull, not a push, right? So if you can sort of separate what you're doing versus the world, then you can identify the most effective things. And I guarantee they're going to be more pull than push. Unfortunately, most companies err on the side of push. They're like, hey, I just built this product.
It's great.
It's better than everything else in the world, right? I know how to market. The problem is they usually don't. And they can't hire somebody yet because they don't know the buyer journey. Nobody's going to join a company when they have no idea what they're getting into. Like, when you don't have that buyer journey, you don't even know who to hire, how much to pay them. And that person is never going to take that job because they want to know, okay, what can I make over the next 1 to 2 years? So let me see what effort is required to sell your product. So you want to have the data, and it'll change, and it requires experimentation, lots of testing. What I recommend to companies is don't settle on one go-to-market strategy. Choose a couple related ones and test them all. They could be different channels. They could be different messaging. There could be different pricing models, right? So experiment. See what happens in a month or 2 months or 3 months, and start to reallocate resources to the winner and put the other ones away for now. You can always take them out again. Those go-to-market strategies might not have resonated because of time of year, or the the schools you targeted, they may not have hit. It's fine. Just move on, do some analysis after the fact, and then maybe you resurrect them for either another target market or a different time of year. I mean, maybe people didn't open your email because you just randomly didn't pick the right time of year. But even the 2 strategies that didn't work, that's helpful, right? You can recast them and try again. Or sometimes you just say, hey, I've tried this particular niche many times, or this particular channel, or this particular messaging. This stuff doesn't work, right? So the more you know, the more you can hone in on who to sell to, which is known as niching down, right? So niching down is helpful because you can find people more easily, right? Selling to a special ed teacher or a curriculum designer in a school who have those titles is different than selling it to teacher, right? So you might be able to understand what grade level that teacher teaches, but it's a pretty broad persona, right? So niching down is helpful with your go-to-market. I think there's at least 12 to 20 different personas in K-12, right? So, when you're targeting your product, you need to be aware of that. You need to know who you're targeting, because also you can't sell one product to all 12 or 20 personas. Why not? Because elementary school teachers are different than middle school, that are different than high school. And if you put a product with the same interface in front of all of them, I guarantee you're going to find only a handful of teachers that like it, right? The elementary school teachers could think it's too complicated. The high school teachers could think it's too rudimentary. And so to me, I'm stunned that EdTech companies don't take more time crafting a user experience to the various personas.